Welcome to Unconventional. I'm your host, Bill Tessar. Unique stories from entrepreneurs that have failed, picked themselves up, been knocked down, picked themselves up again, traveled roads that few travel. It's about digging into the successes that people have found in real estate, financing, lending, and the like. Welcome to today's episode of Unconventional. I don't believe anybody builds a successful business overnight without trials and tribulations. Today we have the opportunity to dive into the often unseen foundation of building a multi-million-dollar real estate business and custom development. Joining us today is a man whose journey is really an incredible example of starting small and scaling big. From navigating the housing market in so many ups and downs as a buyer's agent to building an ultra-luxury, multi-million-dollar custom homes. You'll hear from someone who has seen the real estate world from both sides of the fence as he first stepped into it over 20 years ago. His work is unbelievable. And for me personally, it's been an honor to watch you kind of navigate through this and do something that nobody else is doing in that space. And it's an honor for me to introduce to you Dan Yonker, President and CEO of Yonker Construction out of Arizona. Hey,
Thank you very much, Bill. Appreciate it.
We had some fun last night, didn't we?
We had probably too much fun.
Yes. We were saying earlier that if we could have done the podcast in the restaurant, it would have been fascinating for like reality TV and horrifying for the real estate industry.
Horrifying for all of our customers.
But you know what? But for me, honestly, Dan, I went home last night and I went into our dinner knowing how special you were. We've known each other for a while now. And, you know, I came out of it going, man, when you think about unconventional stories, you're really the epitome of it. You really are, Dan, and you should be applauded for that. Like, I felt wonderful for you leaving that dinner, just getting caught up.
Well, I really appreciate it, Bill. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you for bringing me out.
Yeah, we had fun. So what's got you excited today?
What's got me excited? Well, I just recently closed on a lot split over in Paradise Valley, Arizona, a 100,000 square foot property that we're splitting into two 50,000 square foot lots. Going to be building an 8,800 square foot house on one and a 9,500 square foot house on the other, and be selling them around 12 to 14 million. For those two each.
So for those back at home, if you're doing fast math, an acre's 43,560. So each one of these are
about
a little over an acre.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so one 8,800, and what was the other one?
One will be about 9,500. We've got a 9,000 square foot main house designed right now, and we're going to do about a 500 or 600 square foot casita with that house.
And so will the designs be similar, or will they be?
Totally different. Totally different. One's a modern Santa Barbara house, beautiful white stucco, black tile roof, very modern interior, gorgeous landscaping. And the other one is more an English chateau, more of a lot of brick on the outside, stone on the outside, metal roof, contemporary English chateau. And
standing back, there's separation of the two homes, like.
Oh yeah. And this street is fantastic. It's one of the most beautiful streets in Paradise Valley. A lot of Paradise Valley is still being developed, and you have a house built in 1973 next to a gorgeous 2,500 square feet, next to a gorgeous 10,000 square foot home. But this street, we actually got the last two lots on this street that haven't been developed yet, and they happen to be together, and we were able to put two new homes off to finish off this street. It's going to be one of the best projects I've ever done. Very excited.
It is interesting. You mentioned that about Paradise Valley, and you talk about having the old homes next to the beautiful homes. And here in Manhattan Beach, it's very much the same. I think I shared with you, we call it, and I'll clean it up, but we call it the folks that aren't getting rid of their homes, we call them the NFLers. Like, you know, for the football league, we say they're not friggin' leaving. And so Paradise Valley has a few of those as well.
We have those exact ones. I'm doing another project right now where we've got a house next door, and it's the last house on that street. And I've got somebody dying to buy it. And we do a lot of custom home building in addition to our spec projects. And they're willing to pay $500,000 over the value of the property, just because it's the last house on that street and they want to finish that street off.
We're talking about like ultra luxury, and I think, you know, some folks including me. Like, I have my son lives in Arizona, so I've spent a bunch of time there. We have financed a bunch of projects, but you don't actually, I guess, out the gate think of Arizona and $5 million plus homes. And when I said that to you, you kind of just chuckled back at me because that's the exact opposite of what you're seeing.
Well, and mostly I think when people think of Arizona and luxury, they think of Scottsdale. And Scottsdale is actually not where the ultra luxury homes are at in Arizona. There's a town called Paradise Valley that is all 1 acre parcels. So the smallest lots you're going to find there is 1 acre. And so they're just big estate type homes. But when it was developed, 50 years ago, people would buy an acre lot, and they'd build a 2,500 square foot house on it, and they would actually fence off inside the acre, maybe a quarter of an acre of it, because they didn't want to maintain the rest of the lot. So you've got these big, gorgeous lots, and the town has made rules that don't allow you to subdivide and make them smaller than that, and that has made it what they're calling the Beverly Hills of Arizona. And it's just gorgeous estates, and it's getting more notoriety. It was in the Wall Street Journal recently as the Beverly Hills of Arizona, and the development there is just taking off like crazy. Everywhere you go, it's just amazing to think that much money is coming into Arizona right now.
Listen. I know there's been an awful lot of people coming from California, and if you just focused only on the state tax differential, it's substantial. You're talking about potentially for some of those folks, $13,000 per 100,000 owed, and that money goes a long way. And so, I think that has something to do with it. Probably not.
Well, and like we were discussing, in Manhattan Beach, you might spend $9 million to buy 5,000 square feet on a 2,700 square foot lot.
Yes.
And in Arizona, you could get an acre lot and get a 10,000 square foot house for close to that same
with
money.
A yard and a pool.
With an insane,
yeah.
I mean, with just the outdoor living spaces that we create here are just unbelievable.
And we're going to have an opportunity before you leave to share for everyone else how to follow you. I do follow you. I love your Instagram posts. They're fabulous. And the homes Dan builds are second to none. They really, really are special. Like I'm going to dive into like, how do you get the ideas and where do they come from? And we're going to talk a little bit about what I think is one of the more special parts of your business, which is your family.
Yes.
So can we touch on that a little?
Well, Yonker Construction is truly a family company. I do the design of the homes. I design the floor plans. I design the elevations, what they're going to look like from the outside. And then my wife takes over from there and does the interior design, makes them special inside, picks the finishes, what everything's going to look like inside and how it flows. And my oldest son actually just recently graduated ASU with a construction management degree.
Is that Forkham?
That's a Forkham. And he is now one of our superintendents and project managers, and looking forward to him growing in the company and one day taking over my position when I can finally retire from this business.
Is it tough as a family? Like, you guys work together. I know you're very tight with your family. You guys do vacations together.
Oh, yeah.
Like, is it?
We all live together right now, actually. My oldest son just bought his first house. He's remodeling right now, and he's actually going to be moving on July 24th next week.
Wow.
So he's actually moving out. He moved in after college. He lived away during college, but then moved back in to save money so he could buy a house. Very proud to say he saved all his own money. I did not put a penny into his house, and he bought it all by himself.
That's awesome.
Very proud father.
Yes, you should be.
Yep.
You guys do stuff together off of the work sites?
Absolutely. We travel a lot together. He and I have been scuba diving together since he was 13 years old, and that's probably our big passion that we've dove all over the world, Thailand, all over the Caribbean, all over South America, Jamaica, everywhere. So that's been a really bonding thing for he and I to do together.
You and I didn't get to talk about this last night or ever before, but I'm going to share a little fun fact about myself, and it's going to roll into a question for you. I have... I'd use the word fear. I have a fear of sharks in the water. And it's funny because I live,
well, it's actually
right by the water here in Manhattan Beach, yet I would not go in the water beyond maybe my knees.
Right.
And I literally have an app. It's a shark app that tells me all the tagged great whites and makos and other forms of shark along the coast. And I live in a community of surfers, so none of those guys want to hear me say that. But like, what's the scariest thing you've ever bumped into?
the interesting thing about the fact that you say that you're scared of sharks, I was horrified of sharks growing up. And when I was 18 years old, somebody told me that if I picked up scuba diving, it would cure my fear of sharks. And it's the craziest thing. Now we actually go out and we look for sharks when we're going diving. We go on shark dives to be able to dive with them because sharks are not, I mean, of course, there's that occasional once in a while they'll bite a surfer or something like that.
It's the once in a while that scares the crap out of me.
But if you look at how many people are in the water all the time, all over the world, it's you have a better chance of getting struck by lightning than being bit by a shark.
True.
And when you're down there with them and see them in their natural habitat, they come up and they swim by you and you see them, they're actually more scared of you than you are of them. And it's just, they're beautiful creatures, and it's just an amazing experience to see them in their natural environment like that. And it's completely cured my fear of sharks. I used to be the same thing. I remember I was in the Bahamas, and I was riding a jet ski, and I was scared that even my toe got in the water, that a shark might bite me.
I go to the Bahamas a lot. Don't tell me any Bahamas shark stories. So listen, I obviously we're not here to talk about sharks, but when you told me about the scuba diving, in my head, I'm going like, wow, maybe I'll share that with them. So, like,
so I need to get you into scuba diving. I'm going to cure your problem.
That's not going to. I'll do a cold plunge with you. How about that? So, listen, the show is called Unconventional, and your story is so unconventional at how you became a high-end, ultra luxury home builder. So let's dive into that a little bit, because it's crazy. I don't think anyone would believe it unless they heard it from your mouth.
I don't think I would believe it if I didn't. If you would have asked me 20 years ago that I would be living in Arizona and building luxury homes, I don't think I would have believed you. So
take me. Let's go from the beginning.
So I grew up in Seattle. As a younger man, I was involved in nightclubs, and I worked in the entertainment industry in the nightclubs. I was in Houston, Texas for a while. I was in Seattle. I was in Miami. And then I had my son when I was about 25 years old, and I decided I needed to find something a little more constructive to do with my life, and looked around for a while. And by the time I was about 30, I settled on real estate and started doing, I think I started in 2004, and started working with buyers and helping people buy and sell, and did that for about 3 or 4 years. And then the Great Recession happened, and all the real estate, the crash of the real estate market, and Microsoft, the Remax in Microsoft was down in Redmond was going out of business. All these people that have been in business for years didn't know what to do, and everybody was freaking out.
This is 08, 09-ish?
This was 08, 09-ish. And so I started looking at it, and I said, what is everybody looking for right now? And everybody was looking for buyers. But everybody in real estate, if they're successful, they want to be listing agents. They don't want to be buyer's agents. So I said, let's take advantage of that. Let's go to all these listing agents who have all these listings that can't afford to advertise them because they're not selling anything, and let's offer them free advertising. And so I'd make calls all day, and I'd get agreements to be able to advertise their listing with the one caveat: all the calls from that advertising would go to me. And I started with 2 people in my house advertising on Craigslist, because that was where, in 2008, you advertised real estate before they had Realtor.com and they had all of these other sites.
Wow, that's right.
Craigslist was the place you did it. So I started with 2 people, then there was 3 people, and then I was hiring agents because we were getting so many leads I couldn't service them all myself anymore. And by the time, by about 2011, I had 9 people working in my house just posting ads on Craigslist. I had 3 agents plus myself out just constantly, and we were killing it in real estate. When everybody else was going out of business, we were absolutely dominating it.
Wow.
And that's when I came to the conclusion it was time for me to start investing in real estate. I mean, I owned my home at that point, but
you were making quite a bit of money, right?
I was doing really well. And I was looking around the country of all the different places that had been hit by the recession and where prices were down the most. And where they were down the most was Miami, Las Vegas, and Phoenix, Arizona. Mm-hmm. And I have a son at that time that I had joint custody with, and he was living in Seattle. And so Miami was too far away from me. I couldn't make that trip, and I was looking at the difference between Phoenix and Las Vegas. And I just decided Phoenix, to me, looked like it had the most potential and would be a better place for me to live and eventually have my son come be with me down there. So for 7 years, I flew back and forth working until my son graduated high school. Actually,
wow.
No, it was 5 years. But was originally just flying down on weekends and looking at houses. The Phoenix market had gone down 90%. So a house that you could buy for $300,000. I bought my first house down in Phoenix for $35,000.
Wow.
I sold it 5 years later for $400,000. And
Did you ever look in and see where that thing's trading right now?
One of my biggest regrets. We talked about this last night. And probably my biggest regret. From 2011 to 2013, I bought 23 rental houses, bought them, rehabbed them, and got them rented, and kept them all. And then when I started my construction company, I needed some equity to get the company off the ground, and I sold all my rental properties to get that company off the ground. But boy, I look at that and I say, gosh, I'd have had $80,000 a month residual income coming in had I kept those properties.
You were telling me, I think you said at the time it was like $1,500 a month per asset. And now it's $3,000 a month plus appreciation and the tax benefit and the like, right?
And the depreciation you get, the money you can make, because it was so great for all those years I could make all this money and not have to pay taxes.
Yes.
And then you go and you sell all that and you start making money again, and now you're keeping half of what you used to keep.
It was a story that Dan and I went down the rabbit hole last night. We had dinner together and we were just talking about like regrets, if we have any, in real estate. And we were talking about not taking advantage of the 2% and 3% loans for that period of time with as much real estate as you could possibly pile on, and then selling stuff, because real estate over time only goes one way.
And I think I've heard this advice so many times and I just never listened to it. The biggest regret you'll ever have as a real estate investor is selling your properties. Because 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, you'll see what those houses were worth, and had you held on to them with no effort, you would have all this equity.
That's right.
And a lot of times really good rental returns. And
cash flow.
Cash flow, yes.
Okay, so you come to Arizona. You were a. What I love about the front end of the story is you're like, hey, like for anybody that lived through the financial crisis, it wasn't just a moment in time. COVID was a moment in time. The financial crisis devastated. It decimated the real estate industry.
It was nothing like it in my lifetime, and I don't think there was anything like it since the Great Depression. It was.
Some people say it took almost 8 to 10 years to fully come out of the cycle of the banks getting rid of all their properties, because they didn't dump them overnight. They leaked them to the market.
And I think it's put us in the position we're in today. We still have a housing shortage because people stopped building for 10 years. There was no new product built for 10 years. And yet the population kept growing and people kept needing housing. And we're so far behind. To this day, I don't know how we ever catch up. That's, they raised interest rates from 2.5% to 9%, and you still have appreciation in housing. And that's because we have a housing shortage that I don't know how we're ever going to overcome.
And I want to talk to you a little bit about that. I think the last report, I was on a conference and talking about this. It's like 7.2 million homes, less than is needed.
Exactly.
And new permits, it isn't. And that's not even talking about the people we don't know that are coming in that need housing. We're talking about the people that we do know that need housing.
I mean, just natural growth of the population, and then you've got unnatural growth.
People are living longer. People are staying in their homes longer. Yeah. People are educating their kids out of their homes, working from home. The problem's a big one.
Well, and then you've got the people who have the 2.5% mortgage that are never going to sell their house because they will never see that mortgage again.
I think you and I have read from the same hymn book.
Yes.
I mean, literally. So I'm interrupting your start. You come to Arizona. So you fly into the face of chaos. You start generating these leads, finding buyers. You move to Arizona. Well, you go back and forth to Arizona.
I'm traveling. I'm still running my real estate team in Seattle, but I'm acquiring properties down in Arizona. I haven't started my real estate team in Arizona yet at that point, because I was really only going down on weekends for probably the first year, and then by the second year, I got a place down in Arizona. I got a car down in Arizona, and then I moved one of my team members from Seattle down there to help me. We were helping people buy and sell real estate, and we were actually starting the Craigslist thing and doing all the stuff that we were doing up in Seattle. But I was getting more in love with the development part of real estate. I was really enjoying taking something that looked awful, and this was when everything was a foreclosure or a bank-owned property and short sales.
Short sales, that was very popular.
And these houses were just in awful shape. They hadn't been deferred maintenance. They hadn't been taken care of. And it was just great to go into neighborhoods and take these old homes and make them beautiful again. And I really had a passion for that. And I started with the cheapest houses in Arizona. I was going to, low-end areas, buying homes for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and turning them into $100,000, $150,000 homes, which that was great, but that was what I could afford at the time.
Yeah, and the neighborhood's loving you, right? Because you're beautifying the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
You're getting some experience. And I think one of the things you told me, which is really a fascinating part about your story, is you weren't a general contractor.
I have zero experience. That people always are blown away. To this day, I'm one of the least handy people that ever meet.
You were good with
Something breaks in our house, I have to call one of my employees to come over and fix it.
But so how do you would you watch what everyone was doing and go, geez, I think I could
I was very much in tune and going on processes, because construction is all processes. It's you have to do this before you do this, before you do this, and everything is done in an order and by specific tradesmen. And I kind of remodeled. I had 1 year. So the first 2 years we just did rental properties, and then the market started really coming back. And because originally I was getting a 20% return, cash on cash return on rents. I'd put in $100,000 and I'd get $20,000 a year in rents. Well, then all of a sudden the prices started coming back, and the $100,000 property became worth $200,000, and then it became worth $300,000, which really was horrible when I owned them. But it made it so that I couldn't get the rental returns I was doing. So I had to change my model again. And this time my model was, we're going to flip houses, because I got that bug for beautifying homes. And so we started doing more expensive properties, and we started, instead of buying them and holding them for rentals, we started buying them and flipping them. And I think 2014, I did 18 flips in a year. And while living in another state. Wow. And running another company.
And learning the construction business, right? While you're doing these flips, you're learning the business.
But I'd come down, and on the weeks I was here, if I had 18 projects going, I was at all 18 projects every day. And I would just drive around, and I'd spend 10 hours a day just driving around, making sure that the contractors were there every day, learning what the processes were, meeting the subcontractors, and understanding what it was going to take to do this, and then working through general contractors who would frustrate me, because they'd have multiple jobs going, so my job would not always be their number one priority. And so I'd come to jobs, and when you're doing spec houses and you're flipping houses, speed is everything, and the faster you can take it down, remodel it, and put it back on the market, that's your return on investment.
Sure.
And so when you go to a project and you don't see anybody working there, it's very frustrating. And so I would hire. When I was doing 18 houses, I was probably doing it with 6 different contractors, because I would never want to give one contractor more than 2 or 3 jobs, because then you're giving them too much money. Yeah. And if anything goes wrong with them, you're in trouble. Back
to your comment off mic when you said keeping all your eggs in one basket. That's kind of a form of it.
It is.
Right?
It is. And that was probably the best advice I've ever been given by anybody when I first started investing in real estate. They said, okay, you've got X amount of dollars. Make sure you split those dollars into 6 buckets, 8 buckets. Don't just put it into one big project. Go figure out the projects you can afford, and you can afford what you can divide by 6, what you can divide by 8. You can't afford to put all your projects into one project or 2 projects, because then if something goes wrong, you're done. Yeah. If you're divided by 6, if you're divided by 8, and something goes wrong, you've lost 1/6 of your project. You've lost 1/8 of your.
Very much recoverable.
Yes. It'll recover by the other ones, and you'll still make a profit.
Yes.
Whereas if you've got all your ducks, if you've got all your money in 2 projects and one goes wrong, you're in trouble. You got all your money in one, you're done.
Yeah, one of the things I loved when you and I first got introduced by Kevin, I flew out and we got to go look at your projects, and there was and I didn't know you other than that we'd provided financing and you were a great customer, but I didn't know you on a personal level, and I didn't know your personal views in business. And when I went back to the airport that day, there was a couple aha moments for me. The first one was all of your projects were in driving distance of one another. We're going to go down that street. We're going to go across the main street. We're going to go over to that area, and I'm going to show you this one. And then we went to the other one. I think we saw 6 or 7 projects, and to your point earlier, they were all your workers. And if you had to shift and you had to meet a deadline on another, you can redirect. But you were managing that orchestra, not other people.
Yes.
So I love that. And then the other thing, which I think was just brilliant on your part, is you were building this beautiful home. I think at the time the number was 5 million, which is probably like 13 million today. I'm exaggerating a bit, but in my mind
not
it was.
far.
And you had the most beautiful billboard out down right by the street of what this house was going to look like. And it looked nothing like the billboard at that state. But you drive up and you got your vision. And I think you've told me you've sold almost every single home you've ever built. At what stage?
Usually at framing. And people are very visual. And the great thing about coming from real estate sales before I went into real estate development is my mind always thinks about selling things and how am I going to find my buyer. And so when I'm developing and I understand what people. I've walked as a buyer's agent. I've walked through thousands of houses with people, listening to their complaints, listening to their compliments, listening to what they liked and what they didn't like. And so when I'm developing, I'm always trying to develop a floor plan that. People will often look at an architect's floor plan and they'll say, well, this is very beautiful, but it's not functional. And so when I develop a house, I actually am my own architect on 99% of the projects I build to this day.
Wow.
To this day, I've actually only ever used an architect 2 times in my entire career of 20 years.
With no background.
With no background. And I have no background in construction, no background in architecture. But there are programs out there you can get, and I understand flow. I understand architecturally what looks good. I understand what people like. And I believe that I can do a better job of that than for most part. There is an occasion where I've had clients ask me to bring in an architect, only 2 occasions, but they were looking for something very special, and I've enjoyed that experience. But even that house, I drew the floor plan. I made the flow. I made how you would walk through it, and then an architect came through and gave it more architectural design.
So I literally just heard something that you said that I guess I didn't pick up on in our last conversations, is that you have walked so many homes as a buyer's agent and you have listened, right? My dad used to say, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them, proportionately. And you did. You listened to what people loved and didn't like, and you incorporated those thousands of bits of information into the way you view building a home.
Absolutely. I have mentored and coached many real estate agents over my career as well, because what I'm really good at is bringing business in. I've always been able to generate more business than I could do on my own. So I brought in agents to actually do the physical work for me to a large extent. But one of the things I always taught my real estate agents was, you're not in a sales business, you're in a customer service business. When you go out and you've bought a lot of homes, and when you go out with that real estate agent who brings you to the house, and by the time they're at the 3rd house, they're like, so which one is it?
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? Yeah. It doesn't make you feel good. What they should be doing, and I always tell them, people will tell you when it's the right house. What you need to be is listening and showing and answering questions. What you don't need to be doing is trying to close a deal. Deals will close themselves.
God, that is so golden for every realtor in every level out there. That is golden right there, Dan. Like that's...
And that's how I've always trained my people, and I've always had a really good real estate group that has the best customer service, repeat customers, and we don't do as much marketing as other people, because people come back to us because of the way we treat them.
Well, so I started this by telling everyone that you focus on the ultra high-end properties. Like I think you told me earlier, you like to really focus on 5 million and above. Like if you had it your way, not really below 2 million, but 5 million and above works for you.
And that's the project cost of the build. That's not even including the land. So
right.
You're really talking, $5 million to $15 million exit prices for these projects.
One of the things Dan shared with me last night, which was another kind of aha moment for me, as a builder, you again have to listen, and you have high-end clients that have high-end demands, that have very strong personalities and very strong opinions, and you, as the general of that project are going to listen to those. And I thought the way that you handle some of the normal everyday frustrations that someone would go through in building an ultra custom home was unbelievable.
And I go back to how I handle real estate. I'm a customer service person. I am the customer service person for the most demanding, best, most successful people in the world. I mean, you can almost not have a job and buy a house that I build, because unless you built your own business and you've developed your own career and you've created wealth, you can't afford the kind of homes I build. You can't go get a 9-to-5 job and expect to buy a $10 million home. So these are people with very dominant personalities, very used to getting what they want and wanting what they get, and very detail-oriented and very much want what they want. And how I believe we excel in this business is by listening to those people and always giving them what they want, answering the phone all the time, being there for every appointment. 9 to 6 rule,
right? Tell us your 9 to 6 rule.
Well, what I say is I turn my phone off at 9 o'clock and I turn it on Do Not Disturb at 9 o'clock at night, because I go to bed and my phone will ring all night. And then at 6 o'clock in the morning, I turn it back on. But from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. at night, I'm always available. Unless I'm in a meeting. And even if I'm in a meeting, likely you'll get a text back. I'll call you back in 30 minutes when I'm out of this meeting. I believe communication and making people feel important, because these people are important, is the key to developing good relationships.
It's brilliant. Dan and I got stuck because I was like, oh, I mean, if I'm committed to the relationship and we're a partner, I really don't want people busting my chops if something doesn't go right the way. And I think his approach is the exact opposite of that, is they're going to be emotional and I'm here to make it better.
Building a regular house is emotional. If you talk to anybody, if you've been through the building process, people get divorced during the building process because there's so much tension between the husband and wife as they're going through and making all these designs and picking all these decisions. You're almost a marriage counselor as you're going through this process, and you just have to understand they're going to be stressed out, they're going to be on edge, they're going to be frustrated, and you just have to be there to coach them through that. And I do it every day, so I understand what's coming on. I understand when things go wrong. They don't do this every day, and they've got their businesses that run flawlessly, and they don't have problems, theoretically. But
I mean, therapy you could be a good therapist.
Maybe that would be what I was.
Hey, Dan, this is Bill Tessar. How you doing, Bill? You looking to build a home? No, I just wanted to talk to you about some challenges I'm having in my life.
Yes.
We talk through those. No, but I mean, really, you are, in a sense, right? Because it is an emotional time as you're building those.
It's such an emotional time. And people, they don't want you to send your employees out to go have this meeting. They want to see your face, and they want to know that you're there. And they want you to hold their hand as they go through this process. And this process takes 3 years. To build one of these big custom homes, it takes a year to design and make it perfect and get the permits and do everything done and get it in and get to that point of having permits and being able to break ground. And from the time you break ground, it takes a good 2 years to build a beautiful house. And that's if they don't make a bunch of changes along the way, which, let's face it, over a 3-year period, designs change. What's in 3 years ago is not what's in today. So you're making changes along the way, too.
About that.
It's absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. The countertops that you liked 3 years ago are not the countertops you're going to like 3 years from today. And those are going to be things that the cabinets you might have liked will not be the same cabinets you're going to like, the flooring. And so as a builder, you have to have the patience to be able to have the pressure of them wanting the house built, because they're not going to understand, because they're making changes to a countertop, that it's going to slow down the process of building the house. Mm-hmm. But you have to be able to explain that to them. You have to explain them that there might be some cost overruns here and that there might be some time extensions based on this. And you have to deal with the fact that that's going to be frustrating to them. And they're mad at you, and because you're the face of what's causing this, they think. But it's how you react to that will determine whether or not you get your next job.
I think it's part of your secret sauce. And, you talk about getting your next job. Most of your custom home building clients are not just clients for life for you. They become friends and they become investors with you on other projects.
Yes, absolutely.
So is there a better testament than that?
You asked me last night, do I have a database for my clients? And I said, no, I don't have a database. I have an engagement schedule. I take them out to dinner. We go out to lunch. I see them, and I don't see them once a year. I see them once a month. I see them maybe once a week. And oftentimes after people are done having me build the house, a lot of times they're frustrated with me along the way, but by the end of the house, they're like family, and we go on trips together. We hang out together. We're there for their birthdays. Oftentimes, I have these people, they will throw big parties for my company and bring all my employees over to their house to thank us for having put these homes together for them. This is like, for these people who have been so successful in life and been able to attain building their dream home, now we've created and provided that dream home for them. They have great appreciation for that.
I mean, I don't know that anybody could point to a greater testament in the high, frustrating, tension-filled custom home building engagement, and that turns into being a lifelong relationship or business partnership. Like that by itself has to be the greatest compliment you could ever have as a home builder. Because if you weren't good, nobody wants to hang around you.
No. And it is always my goal to have a relationship with people and be there for them and help their frustration and help them get through that process, because the end result is going to be amazing and they're going to have exactly what they want. And I won't quit until they have exactly what they want. But along the way, there's going to be bumps, and you have to coach them through that a little bit before you get started too. And I wasn't always as good as that as I am today, and I've got it better at setting expectations, because setting expectations makes a big difference in the end result.
You know, you mentioned diversification, not having all your eggs in one basket. And one of the things I loved about your model when we talked last night was you said at any one given time, you have 8 real projects going. And a couple, like 5 or 6 of those would be cost plus, and I'll let you explain what that is. And a couple are actual full developments on your part.
My butt's on the line.
Yeah, you know, your financial butt is on the line, whereas on the other ones, your reputational butt is on the line. But walk me through the thinking of the 75%. And
so, when I originally got started in the development space, I was doing all specs, and I did that right up until COVID, actually. And when COVID came out, I got really scared. I was like, I didn't know what was going to happen. Now, in hindsight, that was probably a bad decision on my part. I should have probably done more specs, because real estate values went crazy and everybody wanted a bigger home.
Who would have known?
But it seemed like at that point I had a lot on the line, and I was going back to having all my eggs in one basket. And I said to myself, if everything doesn't go the way it has been going, and things slow down and I can't sell my houses, or I have to sell them for less, or I lose money on my specs, how am I going to survive? And I said to myself, you need to start rearranging your business to where 75% of your business is paying you on a monthly basis every time you get a draw, that you're making a profit on it. The profit is not as great as when you build a spec house, but take 25% of it and roll the dice and see what you can do, and make as much money as you can make, and do speculative projects. But take 75% of what you do and make sure that you can pay your bills, and make sure you can take care of your family, and that you don't lose everything you've been building for the last 20 years.
I love it. And I mean, you have employees.
Oh, yeah.
You have people that are reliant on you, right?
And my own family. My employees are my family.
How does that raise process go? Hey, Dad, honey, we haven't had a KPI review in a while. I'd like to talk to you about compensation.
You know, when it's my wife, she usually wins that conversation.
Anything in the market as you sit back right now? Like I have my own view. We talked about there being a massive shortage of inventory. I think both of us agreed with that, and I don't think anyone would argue it. And there's all kinds of stats out there, 6.5 to 7.2 million. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
And I think we also talked about rates going through the roof, right? And now it appears like they're finding a way back. They're saying 2025, maybe we get a 50% retracement of what we lost. It feels like it's a pretty good market. Anything make you nervous?
You know, I feel like right now we might be just about over the hump. I'm feeling more confident about the market than I have probably since COVID. I think with all the inflation that occurred and it's finally back down, and we're getting through an election cycle. Election years are always tough on real estate and investment. I think by the end of this year we should be in a really good place, and I feel like we're going to be heading to a more stable environment.
Supply chains, is that a thing of the past now? Are you pretty good on your supply chains?
You know, there's still certain things that are tough to get. Believe it or not, the electrical panels, the 600 and 800 amp electrical panels that service these kind of homes that we build, they're 2 years out to buy to this day.
Would you consider buying bulk in that if you could?
You can't, and that's the thing. A panel like this is built custom for these houses, so they're built specifically to know I'm going to have these appliances. It's going to have the steam saunas. It's going to have X amount of appliances. So it's designed specifically for these houses. These are custom panels.
Where are they coming from?
They make them here in the country, but but parts are coming from other places, and that's what they're running into. It's not the panel itself. It's a fuse for the panel, or it's a part for the panel that they're having trouble getting. And but yeah, literally, I'm ordering panels now on the day I'm breaking ground, where it used to be I could get a panel in 60 days, 30 days, and now we're ordering them as we go into contract.
Does that, I'm guessing I know the answer to this, but I'd like to hear it from you. When you have those types of supply chain issues on custom builds, even though you're getting in front of it 2 years in advance, when it comes time that panel needs to go up and it hasn't shown up on the dock, how do you deal with that? I
mean, it's interesting. I'm doing a house right now because you never know about it until it's too late. You don't realize that they're 2 years out. Now I order them 2 years in advance, but something had to go wrong for me to figure that out. And I only build 8 houses at a time. They take 2 years to build, so maybe I'm only starting 4 new houses a year. So I don't realize until it's too late that I don't have an electrical panel. So the thing of it is, this is an industry-wide problem. It's not just me. So the city inspectors, the town inspectors know this is going on. They will let you pass inspections that they wouldn't normally let you pass because they know they can't just shut your job site down for 2 years because you don't have this. But now you're building a house, you're putting up drywall, you haven't even really tested everything, and you're double checking and triple checking, making sure it's right. But we have a house that was 18 months in before we got the electrical panel, and we couldn't turn the electric on. We ended up having to bring in temporary power and run it just enough to run the air conditioning units, because in Arizona it gets a little warm in the summer.
A little bit. I saw somebody cooking eggs on the sidewalk. That was a real thing. Yeah. It was 119 the other, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But
it's dry. So
it's a dry heat.
Like you came last night and you're going and it was not bad. It was in the 70s and you felt like it was so humid at dinner, right?
I got off the plane last night and I was so excited. I think it was 72 when I landed. I think it was 110 when I left.
My God.
And it was just such a breath of fresh air to walk in here. But then I get down by the beach and we're sitting in the restaurant. And in Arizona, all the restaurants have air conditioning. You guys don't have air conditioning out here. And I'm sitting in this and I'm going, God, I'm dying in here.
Yeah, you don't really need it.
No.
What is it? So you said most of the custom homes are built before framing. When do you start getting...
Sold before framing?
Sold before framing. When do you start getting a little, now we just went past the framing. Oh, shit, the roof's on.
I just had my first house in 5 years. I actually completed a house that didn't sell. And I think largely it has a lot to do with the interest rates. This home is about an $8.5 million home. You guys are actually the lender on it. And it's the first time I've ever... in the last 5 years, first time I've ever had to make a payment on the house. So
Thank you, by the way. Thank you for making that payment. I didn't want to get that call. Hey, Dan, we had a great podcast the other day, but can you make a payment on Elm Street?
But again, the reason I'm able to do that is 75%, 25%.
That's right.
I've still got income coming in.
That's
right. And these payments are not small payments. I'm talking $50,000 a month for a payment, and then another $15,000 a month between yard maintenance, staging, electric, pool maintenance, property taxes. I mean, and that starts to eat into your $65,000 a month overhead, starts to eat into your profits pretty quickly. So
yeah, it's an amazing number. And it's something that's probably top of mind as you're dealing with those big ones, right?
You asked me if I ever lose sleep at night.
Right. You ever lose any money on a deal?
Oh, I won't say all the time, but over the years I've probably lost money on 10% of the deals I've done, but I've made money on 90%. So again, put your eggs in multiple baskets. Be prepared to take losses from time to time. This house that I'm talking about right now, I will hopefully still make money. You'll never know till you sell them. But this will be the first time in 5 years that I've really even had an issue on a house. I've gotten a little comfortable with it because when I was thinking during COVID that everything was going to go sideways, it actually got better and everybody got excited about homes and building bigger homes and more luxurious homes. But this interest rate hikes, even though a lot of my clients pay cash for homes because they're in a different price point, they're still having to sell their previous home. They're still having to deal with a economy that's a little bit different than it was before. And just the higher interest rate environment is just a little bit, people are not making the big investments that they were making when interest rates were at 2.5%.
Yeah, I know. Like that makes sense to me. It was fascinating when we were chit-chatting last night. We were like, even on this $15 million home, if somebody came in and bought it cash with taxes, maintenance, landscaping, and the like, utilities, didn't we come up to like a $20,000 a month
I think if you own this house outright, you'd pay $20,000 a month to live
if you owned it free and clear.
Yes. Yeah, that would be my estimate. Yeah,
it's
between insurance and property taxes.
Isn't that amazing?
I mean, yard maintenance on this is $3,500 a month. That's just to have the guys come out and take care of the plants.
So hey Bill, I've lost some money on some deals. Are you very sensitive? Like, I lost money on this deal because I trusted that source. I lost money on this deal because I used that sub. I lost money on this deal because I miscalculated an exit. Like, do you think about it so it doesn't happen again?
I believe the most important thing when you're investing is to make your own decisions and not depend on other people's opinions. And when things go wrong, take responsibility for them. These were my decisions that got me here. They weren't anybody else's. I may have asked people for their opinion, but at the end of the day, I should have gotten multiple opinions, and I should have made my best guess based on the research I had done. And you're not always going to be right. You can't be in business and always be right. Things are never going to be perfect every time. That's just life. If you want to have a 9-to-5 job and you want to have a guaranteed paycheck, then go get a job. But if you want to be successful and be an entrepreneur and run a business and grow something, you have to be prepared to fail.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Any other challenges right now in your business that, other than interest rates, that you're seeing that at least makes you aware that it could bring problems around the corner?
Like I said, I'm more optimistic today than I have been for probably the last 3 years. So I really feel like we're coming into a time that real estate is going to boom again. I think they've been trying to slow it down, but as I've been saying, the shortage in housing that exists, once they start to lower interest rates, I mean, we've been having 5% appreciation with the rates at 7.5%.
It's unbelievable.
What's going to happen when rates go down to 5%, 4.5%?
It's unbelievable.
I mean, because that affects what the average person can buy.
It does.
I mean, massively.
It does.
And so I think we're really set for a good run in real estate coming soon.
I agree with that. As we wrap up, Dan, do you have any, I've gotten so much advice from you without asking you about it, just listening, but do you have any advice for someone, the 20-year ago Dan Yonker, who wants to do something different and he wants to be a flipper, a builder, a developer? Do you have any, have you thought, what would you say to that person today? What would you say to Dan Yonker 20 years ago?
I would say find something that you have a passion for. Find something that makes you, if you're working 15 hours a day, you're not tired at the end of the day, that you're excited to wake up the next morning and go do again. Because if I didn't love what I was doing, I wouldn't be able to do it. It's the hours I put in and the turning on my phone at 6 in the morning and answering it till 9 o'clock at night and having meetings all through the weekends and never slowing down. I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't love what I was doing.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, Dan.
My pleasure.
Very, very special story, very special guy. And you got a fan in Bill Tessar. You got a fan in CV3, and we're going to be rooting for you from the sidelines. Appreciate
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Dan, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, where would they go to find you?
Please check out my website at yonkergroup.com, YONKERGROUP.com, or email me at Dan, at yonkergroup.com.
What, do you have the Instagram handle too? Do you know that? They could, you know what? That's what I love about you. Like, you know what Dan said?
I've got a team that does that.
Hey,
Come on,
Dan?
I'm 51 years old.
Yes, we're the same age. I'm a little older than you. Dan's quote of the night. He said, "You cannot market to rich people." He actually said that. So the fact that you don't know the Instagram is great. But if you want to get a hold of Dan, he gave you the email and he gave you the website. And what I would tell you is if you're out there thinking about building a custom home and you're thinking about doing that in Arizona and you haven't picked a builder, you definitely need to consider Dan Yonker. He is best of class. You could see he's a human being. He's a family man. He's passionate about what he does, and he is excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Cheers, Bill.
Good to see you, my friend.